Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. In this episode, I'm blessed to help Day1Week1.org share their story. Billy Bowering and Nick Guida started this nonprofit to support veterans and first responders. Billy is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Day1Week1 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Nick is the producer of the podcast. Both are certified police officers. Their podcast gives public servants an opportunity to share their stories and struggles with PTSD, depression, and other mental health issues, all with the goal of eliminating the stigma surrounding it and saving lives. They also raise funds to help them with the cost of getting the mental health resources they need. You can find their podcast on all streaming platforms. To learn more about Day1Week1, visit day1week1.org. Personally, I'd like to thank all those who have served our country and those who continue to serve and protect us in the military and in our communities as our first responders. I hope you enjoy hearing their stories today. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I'm really delighted to have as my guest today, Billy Bowering and Nick Guida. They are certified police officers, and they had started Day1Week1.org. It's a nonprofit to help police officers, first responders, and veterans and dealing with mental health issues and just helping them give their voice and helping them in other ways as well. Thank you both for being my guest today.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so you also have your own podcast as well, another way that you're giving these individuals their voice and basically sharing their stories. But first of all, tell my audience a little bit about yourselves. You're currently police officers with the Horry County Police Department in Horry County, South Carolina. So just go ahead and tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
We'll start with me. Okay.
Let's go.
My name is Nick Guida. I'm the vice chair and executive producer for Day1Week1. We started this whole thing. This is Billy's passion. I'm not going to steal that from him, as this was his dream, is to, he feels a burden in his life to go and help the lives of others. And me having the background I do with technology and everything like that to make his kind of dream possible, I was more than happy to tag along because there's such a need for it in the world. So mental health is a really big problem. I've had my fair share of dealing with it myself, but that doesn't make me different than anyone else in the world. I'm just open about it. Using that platform and being able to be open about it, I agreed, we have to do something to help these people. The rate of suicide in first responders and veterans is higher than the people killing us. So that's when you know there's the problems not being addressed properly. They'll do a million trainings and a million things in the world to help keep us safe from the bad guys. But what are we doing to help keep us safe from ourselves? So I figured the best way I can help him is going to be through launching this podcast with him. And that's the main thing behind that is it serves as an anonymous beacon of counseling for these people to listen to or be a part of. I started my career a long time ago. I say a long time ago, but it's been the larger majority of my life as a firefighter in New York. That's where I'm from. And then I moved to the EMS fields, eventually pursued my dream of being a beach cop here in Horry County, which is where I've been for the last almost 6 years now. So I've had my fair share with the department. I've been through a lot of different places. I've basically been all throughout Horry County, which is the largest county east of the Mississippi for those that are unfamiliar. So we have a lot of area we cover. So all different types of people, visitors, residents. I mean, it mixes up a lot. So I love policing. And one thing I love just as much as policing is helping the people that I work with.
Yeah, thank you so much for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your story right there. It's so important. And of course, Billy, you are the CEO of Day1Week1.org, and you really felt a passion to start this nonprofit and to start this podcast to help others like Nick. Tell us your story.
So basically where it kind of all starts is I give you a statistic, okay? An average person is going to experience anywhere from 3 to 5 traumas in their lifetime. For first responders, it's up to 188 per year, which is enough to, that cumulative trauma that happens with no really outlet for it. it kind of turns into a situation where we're losing our brothers and sisters at an alarming rate. I'm going to a little bit about myself. I'm also from New York, but upstate. We jostle a little bit about that. I was an old country boy from a dairy farm.
I'm a city boy.
That's right. So you got the country and the city. We got a really cool dynamic. Right. We got a cool dynamic.
The age evens out.
We got a cool dynamic. I'm the older officer. I started a lot later in law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement for about 5 years. I started at the age of 48 years old. And I mean, my buddy Nick, I mean, my son is older than he is. So just to give you kind of that perspective. But it didn't take very long to understand going to different calls and seeing different things that I saw and how that it affected my coworkers and things like that. Something had to be done. There wasn't really a system in place, and there hasn't been for years. I will say that our agency is amazing at making sure that our mental health is good. Nick and I were involved in a critical incident earlier this year, and I can't say enough good things about what they did to make sure that on a mental level that we were good to go. They had to give us the access to resources that we needed and things like that. But of course, all of those cost money. So along with individuals telling their story on the podcast, to kind of help others that may not seek that help, they'll hear it on a podcast of what this person did. It'll help put tools in their toolkit to kind of help them get through those things. The second aspect of what we're trying to do is offset the cost associated with seeking mental health. It's expensive, and a lot of times insurances don't cover long-term and sometimes even short-term. They don't cover those kind of things. So that's where the fundraising that we're doing is trying to offset those costs and do that, as well as build a platform. And the third thing that I'm trying to really accomplish is I want to have I don't even know if it's a thing. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I want to have the first mental health triage group where literally we have individuals with the experience that can deploy to people who are in need and have that human interaction, which I think is the number one reason why people end up ultimately killing themselves, is they don't have that human interaction. We've lost that with COVID and all these different things. We're separating ourselves. And this is an opportunity, instead of just talking to somebody on a crisis line, these individuals are going to have the training to be able to go out and, hey, let's go have coffee. Let's talk through this and spend time with these folks. So that's really kind of the dynamic of what I'm looking to accomplish.
I think that's wonderful. Do you think that oftentimes veterans, first responders, those that are showing up at the scenes of these very traumatic incidents, oftentimes feel like they aren't supposed to have the feelings of sadness, of trauma, of being overwhelmed by what they're seeing? And then maybe the public also thinks that they're just supposed to be tough and they're just supposed to endure. And therefore, that's where the disconnect happens and they become isolated, they become sad, and they try to carry that burden alone. Is that what oftentimes happens? And that's where you're losing these good men and women?
Absolutely. There's certainly a stigma that's attached to this. I mean, you hear things as you're going through, like the veterans as well as first responders. You hear things such as hero, champion, warrior. You hear all of these things. And when you see the movies and the media that talks about heroes and champions, right, you don't see a sign of weakness in these folks. There's almost a perception that we have to attain. And it's tough, but even Superman has kryptonite. You know what I mean? So even the strongest man of steel, of course, has something that brings him down. And it's being able to have self-reliance, self-talk, and then a community that's reaching out. The bottom line is we got to make the conversation normal.
Why do you think it's taken so long to make this conversation normal? I think it's interesting. It's just taken us so long to say it's okay to feel this way. And it's even more okay for us to work together to get beyond it so you can continue to do a job that you love and do it well and be better for it by talking about how you feel.
You want to speak to that?
I mean, I think a lot of that ties into what Billy said originally with the stigma behind being a superhero, right? I think often it was always looked at, and this is might be, I guess the best word I can think of is like arrogant, right? Is the best way I can think of. An arrogant way of thinking about it would be that it was never that this is probably a result of the job or the things that we have to do or go through, right? For veterans or first responders, it's always that something was wrong with that person, that it was a sign of weakness to them. And I think overall, when you can just, chalk it up to that, it just makes it easier to have that conversation than it is to, hey, let's figure out why it's happening so often. And it's just one of those things where so often you hear, thankfully not as much anymore, but for a long time it was, well, job wasn't for him and this is what happened, or job wasn't for her and this is what happened, or that's what they signed up for. That's my favorite thing I love to hear about. Nobody ever signed up for the lifelong commitment of untreated mental trauma that goes with the things that they have to deal with subsequent to other people's actions.
And you retain really good officers, really good men and women in the military by getting them the help that they need to be able to deal with the trauma, I would think. Is that not correct? Would that not make sense?
That's
Because
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
just
it's the
because you
same
face
principle.
trauma doesn't mean you aren't a good officer. It doesn't mean you aren't a good military, personnel.
Right. It's the same principle they use in the private sector. If you look at these newer, more corporate offices and stuff, what is the number one thing they integrate? They have lots of windows. They have lots of outdoor spaces and general seating areas where people can do work, because they, through discovery, they found that to be more productive. And it is the same exact thing when you talk about this first responder and veteran world. It's not so much having a coffee bar at the police station where officers can sit and look outside, but it's having that mental health, the balance between their work and the things they see and have to deal with versus the other side. So it's kind of the same principles applied in the private sector for better productivity.
And you
Another
say
thing that I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, another thing that I've noticed is that in law enforcement, especially, you're not allowed to turn it off. I mean, when I'm out with my wife and we're having dinner or something like that, I'm not hyper vigilant, but I'm still pretty vigilant of what's going on around me. So there's really not a lot of, okay, I can just relax kind of time. And that kind of stuff. I mean, it definitely accumulates. And again, I've been doing this a very short time compared to a lot of people. I know that we have people that have come on our podcast that, 27 years experience, 25 years experience. And I can't imagine 25 years of continued trauma like that. And then still being able to have a smile on their face a lot of times. The only thing that really helps with that, I think, is the faith element that comes along.
Yeah. What can the public do to help you through this process? There has to be a way that we can be better. We can be different to help you continue to be better officers, be better, folks in the military. It needs to be a team effort because we need you. We need you doing what you're doing. We need good men and women on the force because you're protecting us. You matter. You're important.
Back to me.
Yeah.
Just sticking you with the hard ones. So this is I'm gonna say that let me think this out for 1 second. How can they help us? You mean directly through the organization or in general?
Well, I think in general, and we'll get through Day1Week1.org. But I think there's information that people need to know. It really bothers me when, for example, you're out. There's a little kid. There's a police officer. If you don't behave, they're going to come get you and take you to jail. You know what? The police officer should be someone that should be there to help you and be your friend and your protector, not someone who just hauls you off to jail for being bad. Yes, that's what happens, but there should be a way to change what we're saying. And that should also come in many forms. And that should also come with you shouldn't have to just deal with what's out there that you're dealing with every day without having the resources or without feeling like it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling. You know what I'm saying? There should be a way
Right.
for the public to be able to do their part as well because we need you.
So I'm going to say to that, my response would be, there's no better time in the world than now to start being understanding of those kind of things because of without getting into politics and everything like that, 2023, they call that, the year of being woke, right? Everyone's like starting to understand everyone else's point of views on everything, right? Whether you agree with them or not, it's all about understanding and accepting the culture, right? So should be no different. Nobody has to ride along with us for a day to really see what it's like. Nobody's asking anybody to do that and put the vest on themselves, but maybe just be a little bit more open-minded about the things we actually do. Maybe starting with the news and public media and everything like that, not showcasing the really bad situation that happened in police work that day. Maybe a little bit more of the 99% of what happens in police work every day, which is helping people and stuff like that. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I just recently dealt with that. So like the exact situation, it was a young early teenage girl. Her mom said, the police officer's here. If you don't go to school tomorrow, he's going to take you to jail. And I said, ma'am, I'm not taking your daughter to jail for not going to school. Let's talk about why she doesn't want to go to school. Let's talk about why you're allowing her to think that the only thing I'm going to do is take her to jail. So those are her two options. She doesn't want to go to school tomorrow. We're not going to figure out the reason. And if she doesn't, the cop's going to take her to jail. That's so closed-minded. That's not humanized to any degree at all. And it's oftentimes, for some reason, maybe it's because it's the popular and marketed opinion, people love referring back to the most rigorous form of return that an officer is ever going to give. It's never going to be that the officer is going to sit down and talk to you. You're going to go to jail, they're going to shoot you, or they're going to chase you, or they're going to it's never the other things that are in between.
Right. Right. I just think, we have an obligation to do our part. And so that's why I say, what can we do better? I am a supporter of law enforcement. I always have been, and I always will be. Will there be bad cops? Absolutely. But there are a lot of good men and women on the force doing great things every day. And I want them to be recognized for what they do. And that's what you want, the good men and women on the force to get the help that they need when they are feeling down and they are feeling hopeless, because they know they're trying and they know they're doing their best. And that's why you have Day1Week1.org to help them not give up, because they really want to be there probably, and they don't want to give up what they love, right?
Absolutely.
Speak more.
There's a concept behind the name Day1Week1. The concept is every day, every person has a Day1Week1 story, right?
Yeah.
It's the first day that you made a change on something. You changed your eating habits. You went to the gym. The day you got married, you started a new job. All of these things, it's related to Day1Week1. It's the first day of the rest of your life. Okay. The thing that I'm trying to bring forth is, if you remember the passion, if you remember the excitement, even the fear that you might have had on that first day, bring that every single day, because it's the foundation. It helps you to remember where you started from. Yeah. So every day should be Day1Week1, at least on a mental level.
And that's what you're doing for these men and women, right, who you're trying to help them remember the Day1Week1 that they started on the force, or they entered into that branch of the military, correct?
Absolutely. A lot of times we as first responders and even the veterans, I mean, we take ownership of a lot of the problems that go on in our society because we feel like we're the fixers, right? So we take ownership of that and we carry that ownership with us. We put it in a backpack and we carry it every single call. Every single time we go to the next one, we stuff it in the backpack. And then we go home and try to be a loving husband or a loving father, or be nice to your family, or go and want to socialize with people when you just got screamed at, punched and kicked, and all this derogatory stuff that goes on throughout the day. It's not always like that. Not every day is like that. I mean, there's days, they say that it's a thankless job. If I can give a young lady a warning ticket because she doesn't have her driver's license, or write her the citation and say, listen, get your driver's license and I'll dismiss the ticket, or something like that. Our discretion goes a long way. So being able to do that to the community. You asked, what can the community do? The community has to see us for who we are. We're real people, and we're trying to, right. We're real people. We're human, and we're trying to fix something sometimes in 15 minutes that took years to mess up. So
talk about your nonprofit and the things that you are doing to help these men and women, and how people can help them?
So we have a donation link. It's donate.day1week1.org. You can go to that link. It's through the PayPal. You can be a monthly supporter. You can do a one-time donation, anything like that. Obviously, the money that's coming in, all of the funds that we receive go to the nonprofit, and they go towards offsetting the cost of mental health. There's a few Carolina mental health programs that are that I'm in communication with. We're fairly new, so we've got to lock down some things. But there's Carolina mental health places where it costs money for these folks to go. And I'm trying to take some of their worst cases where they may be in arrears and eliminate that burden, that financial burden, so that they don't stop going to get the help that they need. So Day1Week1 can step in and kind of help assist with that. There's an application process to that. We can't just throw money at everybody. Unfortunately, if we could, it would be amazing. But
Sure.
that's one of the things that we're doing. Of course, the podcast, maintaining that, the equipment, things like that, the website, all that operational costs that cost money. And then just community events. We're getting booths out there. We're getting our name out there. I'm trying to do speaking events. Nick is always working on, upgrading the website, doing all those kind of things. So that's what we're trying to do on that side of it.
And when people come on your show and they're sharing their stories, that in itself is therapeutic and helpful for others who are hearing their stories. It gives them hope.
Absolutely. Like Nick said, it goes as an anonymous counselor. Basically, They don't, soon we're going to be on YouTube, so they'll be able to see the faces, but the first 5 episodes, you're hearing the voices of people who've experienced the trauma, experienced the different type of things in their life where they almost were at that last point in their moment and they were going to take their own life, and how they got away from it. So there's some survival stories that go through that, people that live with those kind of things. So it's incredible to listen to the stories. We've had to actually pause a podcast a couple of times because it got so emotional in the room. And it's, again, very therapeutic for even for me, and I'm sure for Nick too.
Right. And that's the second part is the donation link is a primary, obvious way to help support everything that's going on. If you can't donate or you're not in a position to donate, social media and everything is such a powerful thing nowadays. You literally sharing that link could lead to somebody else on your timeline or friends list, or somebody that somebody else knows, your aunt's, brother's, sister's, uncle's friend, whoever it is that needed to hear that podcast. And you could literally save a life by sharing the link.
Right. I was just going to say, it's all about saving a life.
Mm-hmm.
Being there for someone who needs you in that moment that you may not even know need you. You're being there for them, and that's powerful. And what a gift that you are giving them. So listen, I want to thank you both for being my guests today. I think it's phenomenal what you're doing. I want to thank you for being out on the streets, doing what you're doing, protecting the community, protecting us, and being brave enough to go into law enforcement, because it is not an easy job, and it is difficult, and it is not for everyone. And for you to have the passion and feel like that's your purpose and goal in life, I thank you personally for doing that. And for everyone else that is out there doing the same thing that you're doing, I thank them. So listen, I wish you all the best with Day1Week1.org. I hope that everyone will go and check it out and listen to your podcast and see what you're doing and making a difference in the lives of so many. Thank you both for being with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely it's an honor to serve, and it's an honor to be on here. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak to you about it.
Absolutely. And that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.